In this video, I want to talk about a two-sentence close that you can do on your listing presentations. When you go out and meet a seller on a listing presentation, there's no reason to over-answer objections. So what I have here is a really quick two sentences that you can say to find out if they're prepared and ready to list with you. If they are, there is obviously no reason to do a full-blown listing presentation. If they're not interviewing somebody else and they're committed to working with you after you've built rapport and looked at their home and toured it with them and gone through it with them, you can ask this question before you pull out your iPad or your laptop or whatever it is that you present your listing presentation and see what they have to say about this question. And if they say yes, move on and just list the home. If they say no, or hey, I'm interviewing several other agents and I want to see what you have to say today, then obviously go to the listing presentation. But if they're like, yeah, let's get started, just take the listing. It's that simple. Why over answer an objection if you don't have to? Like, how many times have you gone and looked at something to purchase it and you were ready to buy and you were ready to pull out your credit card or your checkbook or whatever it was and make the purchase, and the salesperson didn't shut up and they just kept talking and talking and talking, and all of a sudden they gave you objections that you didn't even know existed and they sold you out of buying their product? I know it's happened to me, chances are it's happened to you, and you don't want to make the same mistake. So here's what I recommend doing, or trying, or create some variation if you find some way to do it better to find out if they're ready to list. So you go through the home, you take the tour with them, you find out what's special about their home, or you build rapport before you sit down. You go to the kitchen table or however your style is, and you're getting ready to present your listing presentation. Here's what I'd recommend you say before you pull out your listing presentation. So it goes like this. My goal is to sell your home for the most money possible in a time frame that is acceptable to you. Does that sound good to you? After you say it, just be quiet. Shut up. Don't say anything else and just look them in the eye and wait for an answer. If they say yes, move on and list the home, and I'll give you a script. I have it right here. I'll put it below this video as well. But if they say no, or something like, hey, listen, we're interviewing several other agents and we just want to see what you have to say today and how you're going to sell our home or what's unique about you before we decide who to list with. If they say something like that, do the listing presentation. But if they're like, yeah, we're so excited to get started, just get started. List the home, pull out the listing agreement. So here's kind of what I would recommend doing after they say yes. If they say no, or we want to talk to other agents, do the regular listing presentation. But if they say something like yes, or yeah, we're so excited to list with you, let's get started, boom, go into the listing presentation. So here's what you could do next. While you're pulling out your listing agreement, what I'd recommend doing is ask them a few questions that allows them to feel their motivation and feel the pain or the reason why they need to sell their home. And here's a few of the questions you could ask. You could say, okay, great, let's get started. So tell me again, Bob or Joe or whoever it is, how soon do you want to sell? The reason you're asking this question is you want to get them to recommit to the motivation on why they need to sell. Obviously, if they're not motivated, that kind of sucks, but you can still work with that. But if they're like, hey, we just got a job relocation and we got to be out of here in 2 months, so we want to sell this thing ASAP. Or hey, we're moving to a new home, we already bought it, or whatever that is, and we need to be out of here before our kids get into school at the new place, so we need to sell it in the summer. Whatever that answer is, let them connect with their reason why and their time frame. Another thing you could ask is, so just to confirm, or if you don't know the answer to this question, you can ask it bluntly and straight up. So just to confirm, Bob, you need to sell within the next 3 months because you're relocating for a new job. Is that correct? And then again, let them just restate their reason why, their motivation, and get them to connect with that motivation and that stuff. And that's when you pull out your listing agreement. If you brought comps to narrow down on price, you can bring those out too. But what I'd like to do is pull out the listing agreement and start filling it out. Start with the small commitments. I wouldn't recommend you start arguing or talking about your listing commission or the listing price, because those are bigger obstacles to get through. Maybe start with the disclosure agreement or the stuff that just start checking off the list, because the further they get in, the more committed they are to listing with you, the harder it is to back out when they get to that commission or they get to the listing price. So that's my recommendation. That's what I would start with. And it's all about building up those low commitments instead of going for these big objections like, hey, what are you going to sell my home for? So-and-so said they're going to sell it for this price. If you can't sell it for that price, you're not getting the listing. You don't want to go there. Start with the low commitments and get to that deeper into the listing presentation.